All right, kiddos, get your schmuttas ready. We're cranking up the waterworks. I am your friend Dave Makes Noises, and today we ask the internet, DMs and players, what's the most heartbreaking backstory you've heard/created for a character? Part 1. My tortle's wife, also a tortle, got infected with something while my tortle, Oogway, was learning to be a wizard for that day's lessons. His wife ate their kids and went insane. Oogway got home and knew what had happened, but she was too far gone and cut her wrists, killing herself. But Oogway tried his best to save her and failed. He then got his memory edited so that he saw it as a semi-comic event where it played out different. It's now fading as the campaign goes on and is now slowly going to the deep end. Let's see, I had a fighter whose tribe were attacked. Most of the tribe fled and ended up on an island off the coast, but his sister was out hunting at the time and hasn't been seen since the attack. I also have a kobold who is crippled in a rockfall, and the dragon he works for is getting him to steal things before it'll heal him. He works for a green dragon. My party helped create the backstory for my paladin in our last 3.5 campaign. Marcus was a paladin who worshipped a god of war. He was a soldier before retiring to start a family. His wife, Danica, was a former adventurer who got a job at the local library. He became a guard in town, and his retirement was nice for about a year. One day, his 1-year-old daughter was killed. Soon after that, Danica's friend was kidnapped and held for ransom. The couple decided to sell their house to pay the ransom. When they went to the bandit camp to pay, they found the entire camp had been slaughtered, prisoners included. The couple were horrified, so they started investigating. Danica cast Speak with Dead to get info on the murderers. They grabbed the friend's body and brought it back to town for burial. While she was putting a few final touches on her friend's grave, Danica was attacked by the people who slaughtered the bandit camp. She told Marcus and they fled town in the middle of the night. Danica stole a scroll of raised dead and grabbed her daughter's corpse from her family's crypt. Danica was called a necromancer and Marcus was accused of aiding a necromancer. They had a bounty placed on them. They stopped to camp at an old hideout halfway to the next large town. Danica used the scroll to resurrect her daughter. Marcus took first watch and stayed down the hall a bit. Marcus was attacked first. The attackers tried to lynch him, but it failed. They then decided to beat him unconscious, pour alchemist fire down his throat, loot his body, and then throw his body into a 50-foot pit. Then, they went and murdered Danica and his child. Marcus survived the attack and found what remained of his wife and daughter once he climbed out of the pit. He decided it was time to end his retirement. His attackers had cost him his house, his job, his reputation, his daughter, and his wife. That meant war. I've posted this before, but I have a kobold paladin who is the middle child to a lower middle class merchant family. Growing up, my older brother was taught how to fight, eventually planning on being conscripted in our small town army. My younger sister and I were left to our own until we decided what path in life we wanted to take. My father, being close to most of the lower and middle class, was told that he should run for the ruler of the small town, rather than the corrupt man who is currently running it. His campaign slowly became a success, and the early poll numbers showed that my father was actually favored. The current leader tried to convince my father to drop out of the race, offering money, slaves, a position on his council, but my father said no. He wanted to serve the people. About 2 weeks before the election, my kobold, Scrix, woke up in the forest with his hands tied behind his back and gagged. To his left, his younger sister. To his right, his older brother and his mom. In front of him, his father. All of them bound and gagged. Then, the current leader steps out of the shadows with his lackeys and begins giving a speech about how only the strong are meant to rule and people should learn their place. He snaps his fingers and 2 more lackeys come out with torches and burn my father alive. Before his corpse can even be extinguished, they grab my mother and do the same thing. After that, my older brother is dragged over and Scrix has tears streaming down his face, but that doesn't stop them from murdering my brother. Then it's Scrix's turn. He is thrown to the ground, and before death embraces him, he looks at his sister one last time. Seeing the tears streak down her face, Scrix closes his eyes and accepts what's coming, hopefully making it less painful. As the fire touches his scales, he blacks out. He wakes up, seeing the smoldering corpses of his family next to him, as well as smoldering corpses of some lackeys. He hears a voice call out, "Do not worry, your sister is safe. For now, I am Tyr. I am here to help you take back what is yours. Let's show him what real strength is." I have a character that I would like to run sometime soon, but if I can't, they'll be included as an NPC in the campaign I run for my family. Her name is Vilsris Svart, a half-elven woman in her early to mid-20s, born as the second daughter of the Imperial Magistrate, the title of the ruler of the kingdom in my world. Her father, the High Elf ruler, had an affair with a human woman, and while she is recognized as nobility, it's kinda contentious. When she was 7 years old, however, she was kidnapped by slavers, and her father was killed in the process. For the next 15 years, she was beaten, abused, forced into laborious work, drugged, and prostituted, among other things. During a night in which she was having a breakdown, one of the divine came to her and offered her a way out, and all they asked in return was faith in them and to fulfill a task in her name. Thus she became a cleric, escaped from captivity, and now travels the world fulfilling the request given to her, trying to find her place and figuring out what her purpose is. All the while, she doesn't even understand the very faith-based powers and the religion she uses now. In order to protect herself, she goes by the name Ortlinda Rayleigh, since she knows her noble upbringing will likely bring more trouble with it, and she has a hard time trusting anyone after a decade and a half of abuse. She suffers from social anxiety and has a hard time talking to people because of that deep-seated fear that she is going to be manipulated again. I really want to play her, instead of using her as an NPC in the game I'm DMing, but overnight work makes being a player kind of difficult to accomplish. So just play with people in another country. That's what the internet's for. That's what MrRipper's group finder is for. I have a Kenku light domain cleric who was taken in by a group of religious fire genasi that investigate causes of unnatural darkness. They went to investigate Icewind Dale and ended up being attacked. My Kenku was the sole survivor, except for a very close friend he had grown up with who was taken. Whatever took her used the limbs of his friends to guide him into the Dale and keeps leaving him cryptic letters, treating it like some sick game. He's got a minor case of amnesia and can't remember what attacked his people, but he'll stop at nothing to find who did this. I have Delphina, a human noblewoman with some dilute Fey ancestry and the literal Puss in Boots fairy tale backstory. The favorite child of her fever-deceased mother, from whom she inherited her sorceress bloodline, and the talking cat that has served her maternal line for generations, patronized by her chauvinistic father, who resented her for resembling her mother too much, who recently died and left the family estates to her gambling, punchably faced rival older brother. By that time, her two eldest sisters had been married off to varying degrees of success and scandal, while her last sister saw the writing on the wall and made good on her prearranged betrothal. Delphina got the cat, who promised to lead her to fortunes that would eclipse her brothers. Lots of death, nobles jockeying like a nest of vipers, and cruel sibling bonds. Probably my most tragic backstory. My character in a JoJo D&D game is a 14-year-old stand user who, as a very young child, 3 to 4, was kidnapped along with a bunch of other young children and used as a lab rat to test illegal drugs. My character's stand, which at the time was dormant, is a mental type stand, as it revolves around illusions. So it had protected my character's mind and body from any of the effects of the drugs. So for all the years he was locked in there, before finally being rescued, all he could do was watch as the other children around him slowly went insane due to the drug's effects, before finally dying of overdoses. Because of my character's trauma, he doesn't easily trust people, and he hides his real age and appearance from others by constantly applying an illusion over himself to where his form is constantly shifting, and the only tangible thing that can be made out of his form is his glasses. The DM actually had plans to have a whole thing with a drug as a main focal point in the story, and when I told him this backstory, he was so happy that he had a way to expand it and apply this backstory right at the end of session 1. However, when I finally revealed my real appearance to the party, one of the members was busy talking with the police outside since they had hired us to help with the stand users we had just subdued, and when he came back and saw me, his first words were, "Who brought the child, drug addict?" Edit. I should mention, this character's name is Flash Realis. It was the best name I could think of that represented his abilities in some way. One of my current characters is a human woman, gunslinger fighter, Way of the Gunsay homebrew monk, named Annette Robinson, who had a fairy tale life growing up, living her dream being a ship captain on one of her husband's passenger ferries, part of the shipping company he owned. After their marriage, they spent a year building up the business and appointing a manager to run the place so they could take a vacation. The intent was to spend 6 months away as sort of a late honeymoon and then return. On the way to their destination, sailing on one of their company ships, they were attacked by ruthless pirates. They slaughtered everyone on board, save for Annette. Being the only woman on board, they stripped her and tied her to the mast of the ship before slitting her husband's throat in front of her. They then took all the possessions and goods from the ship and destroyed the controls and sails, leaving it uncontrollable and drifting on the waves, with Annette still tied to the mast. Thankfully for her, the currents managed to carry the scuttled ship into a major trade route, and she was found a couple days later. Being the sole survivor, she kept her survival a secret by informing the manager of her shipping company of what had happened and establishing a cover story that they had actually sold the business to him before their departure, meaning that she had a steady source of income when needed, but she could operate under the radar under an assumed name. She began to dress as a man under the name Andreas to make it easier to find work on a pirate vessel, and soon set about her revenge. Once she worked her way up the ranks to become a captain herself, she ditched the male persona and christened her new ship the Misfortune. Now she's a pirate ship captain on the hunt for the pirates who destroyed her life, and making a new life for herself along the way. I got a few. Human Fighter was defending a village with his squad that was being evacuated to the nearby castle when an invading army arrived sooner than expected and started slaughtering the civilians, men, women, and children, in full view of my character. He and his squad lost the battle. The castle was overrun, and all the civilians, soldiers, and the noble family, including the Count, a personal friend of his, were killed. The area is now under the control of the invaders to this day, and the leader of the invaders never faced any political consequences for the invasion or the massacre. My character became a reclusive alcoholic for the next 5 years until his father passed from illness, and with his final words to him, wished for him to become happy again. At that point, my character decided to get his life together and became an adventurer, to do good in the world, to atone for his failure, as he sees it. To this day, he still very much has PTSD. I roll wisdom saves occasionally and roll on a symptom table if I fail. Half-elf rogue bard. A band of non-violent bandits, highwaymen, scammers, robbers, etc. passed through the area. One member of the group gathered a few men and decided to go for bigger spoils. So they attacked, pillaged, razed, and slaughtered a village. One of the men found a young baby crying in the rubble, his murdered parents around him. He took the baby, and they returned to the group. There, the leader banished the ones who went on the raid from the group and took the baby to be raised among them in the group. From then on, my character learned the ways of crime and thievery, never having a childhood to speak of. This life is all he's ever known. Human Bard Fighter. Imagine the Holocaust. Little boy gets away, the only thing he can save is his mother's violin. From then on, he grew up in the streets with many other orphans like him. Eventually, he is found by a rich man. He finds him playing the violin on the side of the street. The rich man takes him along to be his personal bard. After a while, he promotes him to his bodyguard when he notices his talents. Later, the current regime falls, and the rulers, etc., are held responsible for the whole genocide thing. Turns out the rich man was involved in some way, torn between saving him for rescuing him from a doomed life in the streets, or not, because he was involved in, among many others, his family's death. He runs away. The rich man is hanged. My character is still unsure how to feel about it. Whether the rich man was a good man, a mass murderer, may that be directly or indirectly, neither, or both. Take your pick. Hello, my friends. I hope you didn't destroy your keyboards with the sweet nectar of your own tears. What do you mean it wasn't the tears? Oh no. Oh, no. Thank you for watching this video to the very end. If you've got a heartbreaking backstory, please feel free to share it in the comments section below. If you've got another story to share with our community, please find your way to our official subreddit, r/MrRipper. If you're looking for a group to play some games with, you may have some luck in our Group Finder Discord server. If you'd like to see us read stories live on stream, you can find us every Sunday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. GMT at twitch.tv/MrRipper stream. If you'd like to watch my friends and I play some D&D, you can find us every Saturday at twitch.tv/Fire and Dice. I hope that this week you are drinking that H2O and getting that sweet, sweet slumber. If you want to say hello sometime, you can find me on TikTok at Dave Makes Noises. Thank you again for watching. Please sub for Nat 20s. Ring the bell for advantage on your next attack roll, saving throw, or ability check. I love you, and we'll see you next time.